for First Responder Coffee and Conversation. I'm your host, along with my adult supervision, Sarah, who keeps me in line and makes sure that I don't get in wayward or at least too much trouble. Tonight we have Jeff McDonald, who's going to share his story. Definitely appreciate Jeff being here and sharing some things that have happened recently, to my understanding. And I know he's going to share sentiments that are going to be felt by all of us and understood clearly by all of us. And I think our responsibility at the end of the day is to carry that message forward and share far and wide. So without further ado, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you, brother, and take it away.
Awesome. Well, hello. Thank you for this opportunity. So my name's Jeff, born and raised in Southern California, high school athlete, and had some opportunities to go to college to play football. Probably would have ended up at like a strong safety position or outside linebacker. But I was in love and I could not leave my girlfriend. So I went to community college route, and the day I walked into community college, I realized college was not for me. I was drinking beers at like 10 o'clock in the afternoon with guys that I played football with that were seniors when I was a sophomore in high school. So obviously community college was not the best ticket for me. Had kind of this epiphany of I got to, do something with my life where I'm going to, be a 6-year community college kid. And my neighbor had just gotten home from the invasion of Iraq and talked up the Marine Corps as some kick-ass gun club, and showed me some cool videos, and I was like, man, that sounds like fun. Let's go do that. Went to the recruiter, and funny story, walked in, he goes, you want to be in the Marine Corps, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to shoot people. Not really understanding what all that meant and what all that entailed. And he goes, okay, take the ASVAB. I passed the ASVAB, and he goes, dude, don't go be a grunt. That is like the worst job you could ever have. You could do almost anything minus the nuclear side of things in the Marine Corps. There's lots of cool jobs that'll set you up for the future. I said, dude, you don't know me. I'll go next door to the Army's office if this is how it's going to be. Lo and behold, I signed up as an infantry guy, 0311, and then told my mom. And my mom is a very strong Irish woman, and she walked down to my recruiter's office, got in my recruiter's face, and I was 19 at the time, got in my recruiter's face, snatched my birth certificate, snatched my high school diploma, and said, you cannot have my son, and walked out. Lo and behold, my recruiter calls me and goes, hey, I just met your crazy ass mom. What's going to happen? I said, I know where her hiding spot is. Don't worry. We'll still be good. Went back into my mom's hiding spot, snatched all my stuff back, handed it to the recruiter. I said, put this away. And a couple months later, I was in Marine Corps boot camp. Long story short, went through boot camp fine, became a squad leader, meritoriously promoted, and then went to School of Infantry, which was a culture shock because it was a lot harder. Hold, excuse me. What's up, buddy? My son just came in here. Want to say hi? Want to say hi?
We can't fix the noise in the TV.
Okay, we'll fix it in a minute, okay?
We're not gonna fix it.
Okay, go ask Nana to fix it. Sorry.
We did already.
Okay, I'll be down in just a minute, okay? Okay, bud. So sorry. You're not going to have nightmares. You're okay. He's 4. Forgive me.
No worries, brother.
That,
no
man.
worries,
That's awesome.
Love it.
So, School of Infantry, graduated on the Marine Corps birthday, and then ended up with 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines out of Hawaii. Never been to Hawaii, so why not go on the military's dime? Got to Hawaii on the Marine Corps birthday, and my senior Marines humbled us very, very quick. They reminded they just got back from a deployment and reminded us that we were very low on that totem pole, and made sure that we, our heads were shaved. We were doing some really fun exercises in the shower. Anyway, we knew where we were going. We knew we were going to Afghanistan. So we did a really hard workup to go to Afghanistan. And we were the only Marine Corps unit in Afghanistan at the time. This was in early 2005. So if you've ever seen the movie or read the book Lone Survivor, I was a part of Operation Red Wing. And then we did Operation Red Wing 2. And then we did a follow-on after that called Operation Whalers. I went to the crash site after those SEALs, and I was basically like an outer perimeter on that crash site to help recover those SEALs and Army Night Stalkers that were killed rescuing Marcus Luttrell. Probably one of the nastiest things I've ever seen. The smells they still resonate with me. I live in the great state of Montana now. Phenomenal place. If you guys ever want to come visit, this is a place to be. It is America up here for sure. A bunch of red-blooded Americans, that like, the freedoms that, we have provided and we are awarded. So Afghanistan was a humbling deployment. It was a culture shock. I mean, talk about a third or fourth world country. And those mountains that they depict in that movie are very, very real. Huge, nasty shale rock, and the fighting was intense. Our deployment to Afghanistan was intense, but it wasn't nearly as intense as my second deployment. When we came back, I was promoted to corporal and promoted to an infantry squad leader, where I was in charge of 13 Marines and 1 Navy corpsman sailor. And I took my Marines to just outside of Haditha, Iraq, a town just south of called Haqqaniya. And day 3 of us being in country in Iraq, of us actually occupying our base, we had our first killed in action. And I carried him off a roof, not knowing that he was dead, but still not knowing that he was dead, if that makes sense. He got shot by a sniper, and it just missed his plate, and it popped his heart basically. And he was just standing there against the wall. And as we were running with the stretcher across the roof, that sniper was popping rounds at us. So we ended up having to low crawl and then drag his body all the way across the roof. And we tried to save his life as best we could. We were doing a lot of, we had the deployment that we had was so terrible that every company had a battalion surgeon assigned to it. There's one battalion surgeon for the entire battalion, but every company had a battalion surgeon assigned to it. That's how dangerous our area of operation was. So long story short, Chris Revere died in September of 2006, literally just a few days after we took over. And he was the first, but not the last. My Marine battalion alone lost 23 Marines and sailors, all to IEDs or small arms fire. So after that deployment, I had a choice to make: get out or stay in. I chose to get out. I was tired of seeing my friends die. I was tired of carrying, my battalion was going back to Iraq for a follow-on deployment after that. So I was burnt out. I was tired. It was hard carrying your friends around, picking up our wounded, inventorying gear, reading letters that, we were supposed to give out to families that we were forbidden to give out. So that got really tough. And so I made the decision to get out. I tried to become a fireman because they make way better money, and people wave to them with a full hand instead of the one finger wave. So I got out in June of 2008, and went to Anaheim, California to do the CPAT, or I think it was in Orange, to do the California Physical Agility Test for firemen. Blew it out of the water because I'm a Marine and I'm aggressive and I don't care. If it sucks, I like it more. And I rolled right into a quick Sorry, I'm blunt. I don't care. I rolled right into an interview in PT gear with a fire captain from LA City or LA County. I can't remember now. And he starts asking me about myself. So I give him a quick background that, combat lifesaver, infantry squad leader, promoted to sergeant within 3 years of being in the Marine Corps. Never been in trouble, never been in trouble with the law, never been in trouble with the Marine Corps. And he asked, "Are you an EMT?" And I said, "No, sir." He goes, have you gone through a fire academy?" "No, sir. I literally got out a month ago from the Marine Corps." And he looked at me, stared me right in the eyes and said, "Brother, you're a dime a dozen." I politely shook his hand and said, "Fuck you." And I walked out. I know my worth. I'm nobody special, but I'm not a dime a dozen either. Military guys are, 1% of what we have as a country. And I'm a combat veteran, 2-time combat veteran, and I'm not a dime a dozen. I'm nobody special. I was not special forces, a SEAL, or anything like that. I'm not going to write a book. But I know I'm not just some Joe Schmo off the street. So I went home, I was pissed, and my next door neighbor knew that I was going to do that CPAT, and she asked me how to go, and I told her what happened. She goes, "Well, then come be a cop." I said, "I don't want to be a cop. I want to slide down the pole like they do in the movies." And she goes, "Dude, I'll get you hired." And I didn't know this at the time. Sorry, that's my dog. She was a commander with the LA County Sheriff's Department. So she got me into the academy like really fast, go down, really, really fast. And I was successful. I graduated the academy in early 2009. I was a deputy sheriff, and I ended up at Twin Towers as a jail deputy in the gang modules. I had a blast for a couple of years, but believe it or not, if you're a jail deputy, you're in jail. You are stuck there I usually work 2 16-hour shifts, and an 8-hour shift in between. So I got my 40 hours in 3 days, but I was literally in the jails. I was sleeping there half the time because I lived out east, and it was Groundhog's Day. So I lateraled over to the city of Ontario. Phenomenal department. Some of the best dudes I ever worked with are there, and got onto the SWAT team really, really fast. I broke the record I literally got off probation and applied for the SWAT team and got picked up. So got real lucky, got onto the SWAT team there. And then a couple years later, I got onto their full-time SWAT team and fugitive task force team. So had a really cool career, involved in 2 officer-involved shootings, did a lot of cool things, arrested a lot of bad dudes, plenty of foot pursuits, car pursuits, fights, the things that you want to become a cop for. Well, my time was up on that fugitive task force team, and I felt like I burnt the candle at both ends, and I was done. And my wife and I had always planned on retiring in this great state of Montana, and we decided, why not move now while our kids are still young? I have 3 kids. I've been married for 9 years. I have 3 kids, 8, 6, and 4. And my oldest daughter was in kindergarten at the time. So we decided if we move now, it's either now or when all of our kids are grown and gone. So we decided to move now so my kids can know where home is, versus us pull tent stakes and pop smoke and get up here, and they're kind of like in that limbo phase of young adult and trying to figure out their life. So we decided to make the move. I got hired up here at the city of Missoula as a police officer in Montana, and actually a guy that I served with in the Marine Corps was a sergeant up here. He's now a lieutenant at the city of Missoula. So him and I connected, and he got me hired up here, and I worked up here for a little over a year and some change. And the way I explain it to people was I drove a Ferrari in California and I got up here and they gave me a Datsun. Now, if you don't know what a Datsun is, it was before Toyota, and it was, I got a couple guys laughing, so I know they know what a Datsun is. My dad had one, and he called it a sewing machine. So it's a, it was like driving Miss Daisy up here. It was so slow, and, you know, people were super awesome, but, you know, there was no crime up here, which is a great thing to say if you're a chief of police and you live in the community. But when you come from, you know, the ghetto that I worked in, it was hard for me to adjust. And that's when I started noticing things about myself, and my wife started noticing things about myself. My depression started kicking in. I was starting to have a lot more night terrors and really hard time sleeping. And my wife would tell me, you know, I was talking about somebody in my dreams, or I was doing X, Y, or Z. And I pushed it off for a long time. And then I told her I was fine. I told her I was fine. I told her I was fine. And then at one point, I went to her and I said, I'm having a hard time. And she said, well, you told me you were fine, so now suck it up. And I made some terrible mistakes in my marriage. And I'm lucky to still be married to my wife. She's a rock star. But after the mistakes that I made, I really started seeking help. I hit my rock bottom, and I never know what that felt like. And I've contemplated suicide. I've contemplated, I was doing really, really stupid things on duty. Like, believe it or not, it snows in Montana. And I can remember before I resigned, doing 120 miles an hour in the Chargers on the freeway in a whiteout conditions and blizzard, hoping that I would crash into something so my wife could get paid, because it would be an on-duty death. And I was doing the same thing driving home from work. I would never walk out and put a bullet in my head, but I was hoping a moose would walk in front of my car while I was on the freeway, or an elk, you know, so my wife could get paid and my family would be taken care of. And I wouldn't be here anymore. Excuse me one second, I gotta let my dogs out. Sorry, that should be it for interruptions, I hope. During the times that my wife and I were struggling, and during the times that, you know, things were not good, I don't want to make this a religious thing, but I went to church for the first time in a long time. And I went and spoke to the pastor after, and I cried my eyes out. I never even met this man before. I walked in and said, hey, my name's Jeff. Can I talk to you? And he said, yeah, let's go to my office. And I just like threw up on the guy, figuratively. I just unloaded on him. And it opened my eyes that people do care, and I started getting help. And that's the reason why I wanted to come on tonight, was to talk about how we as law enforcement officers, we're supposed to be tough. We're supposed to have the answers for everything. And, you know, we see some really horrific things. I've seen plenty of dead bodies. I've seen dead children. I've taken lives, both in the military and as a cop. We don't unload that. And what I've realized through I think I've been in counseling and seeing psychiatrists and psychotherapists for over a year now, or coming up on a year, is the way I've learned to explain it to people that I talk to about this is we all carry packs, and we start stuffing our pack. Well, your pack can only carry so much, and that pack really starts to get heavy. And after a while, your pack starts to overflow. And my pack started overflowing when I got here. And what I lost when I moved here was my brotherhood, my connection. I didn't fit in up here. I'm from Southern California, and I'm dealing with I got girls that I work with that chew tobacco. You know what I mean? Like, they drive these big old Ford, pickups that was their granddad's truck. They still have the rifle racks in the back with like bird shotguns in the back. Like, it is still country up here. I didn't fit in. I lost that real brotherhood. And not to mention, our tactics are a lot better down in California than they are here. So I butted heads with a lot of the command staff on, hey man, this is really unsafe. Let's try this. And I lost that brotherhood, and I didn't have any friends here. I left everything down in California. My wife's family's from California. My family's from California. Before we moved, I was 2 minutes from my parents, 5 minutes from my in-laws. So we always had babysitters. So my wife and I could always go out on dates. We've been on 2 dates in a year and a half in Montana. We were going on dates every other week in California. So I lost everything, and I didn't realize that. And I didn't have anybody to talk to because, again, I'm a cop. I'm a Marine. I'm supposed to be able to suck this shit up, and I couldn't. Excuse my language. I apologize. So anyway, what I've learned is through this, I've been out of the Marine Corps 13 years, and I've only been a cop. I was only a cop for 12, and I've only not been a cop since August of 2020. So only a few months without wearing a badge and a vest. But what I have realized is you're wrong if that's your attitude. It's okay to talk about what's going on. And it's okay to talk about if you're having issues and what's going on inside your head, but what's also going on inside your home. Because we put on this bravado, and I call it like an Instagram life. Everything's fine at work. You tell everybody, oh, my kids are great. My kids are this. My wife is perfect, blah, blah, blah. It's all fake. Start to be real. We have to start being real with ourselves before we can start being real with each other. And then if you're noticing things with your friends and your partners, that's when we need to start checking in on them. Or if they go to a terrible call, or, they had a really rough week, just getting hammered with paper at work, hammered with like back-to-back domestics or, child abuse, etc. We have to go to them and just let them vent, let them talk, grab that coffee with them, take them out and grab a beer after shift. Breakfast beers are amazing. I love breakfast beers. And then, I don't know if there's a ton of veterans here. I know there's a couple, but I recently just laid to rest one of my corpsmen. My corpsman took his life after battling his demons. And one of my biggest regrets is I didn't check up on him enough. And I don't know if I could have persuaded his actions, but we go to war with these dudes. We know them more intimately than probably half of our wives, or, you know what I mean? Because we're with them so much, for so long. And I just wish I would have told him I loved him one more time, or, and I hate the fact that I have to live with knowing that my friend, my brother took his life. And last conversation I had with him was, hope all is well, dude. And that kills me. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of my story. There's not I don't know. I just want us to, we as cops need to start taking care of ourselves, and military members, we need to start checking up on our brothers. Law enforcement, we're killing ourselves more and more now because of the crap that we're seeing in, and the negativity that the media and the social media portrays about us. We're not bad. Yeah, there's bad apples. There's bad apples in anything that we do, but we still took this profession for the right reasons. And who cares what the media says about you? Just take care of one another, and the pendulum will swing back, and it'll get better. It will get better for the the guys still representing the thin blue line, I love you. The pendulum will swing back, and we'll get it back in our favor in the future. So that's kind of it. Just, we got to start taking care of ourselves. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I would love to stay in connection with you guys. I will throw my name and phone number and email address in the chat, and I would love to keep connection with you guys. I will try and attend these meetings as often as possible, just to hear more stories and, you know, be there. Be there for our members. So, well, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate you sharing those things. You mind if I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So, you and I have chewed some similar dirt, you know, being here in LA County, working within that space. Do you think part of the reason, you know, your pack became overflowed is because, you know, you were constantly going and going and going, right? You constantly had stuff to do, so that was sort of distracting you. Do you think once you hit Missoula and started working in a slower environment, that is really what kind of caused everything to kind of come screaming back?
Oh, I'm an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
You know, being on SWAT and, you know, doing the fugitive task force thing, and, you know, getting in foot pursuits and car pursuits.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man. And I was in one pursuit up here. That was it. And a year plus, one pursuit, 0 foot pursuits. And trust me, I tried. I would let them.
Did you bump into one of the girls chewing tobacco?
What's that?
Did you bump into one of the girls chewing tobacco?
Man, haggard women, just like they could throw hay for her. Just monster women.
He accidentally ran over one playing a banjo. For my
with a piece of straw hanging out of her mouth.
Yeah.
But I do agree that yes, there was times that I would work a graveyard shift and not get a call an entire night. So I have 10 hours to drive around and be as proactive as I can, and literally the town shuts down and there's nobody. You're chasing your buddies. And so yeah, I had nothing but time to think, and you know, that's where my struggles really started, was moving up here. Things were great down in California, but yeah, moving up here was a true blessing for my children and my wife.
Sure.
I love it now, but not as a cop. And that's, you know, that's where I cracked, my egg cracked up here. So
totally understood. Well, nothing but love for you, brother. Nothing but love for you. I get it.
Thank you.
Understood.
If I gotta say, man, your story is unbelievable, and I thank you for sharing with us. It's totally moving, and every time we have one of these new conversations, I feel like it's you telling my story. You know what I mean? Because so many things that you said, I mean, are like so spot on with probably the entire group. It's just unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable how much similarities we have amongst each other. You know what I mean? And it's to hear somebody else talking about it is. It's refreshing, and it's inspiring as well. And so I commend you for that, man. Thank you for your service. So
thank you, sir. Likewise.
Thank you for being so honest. And it takes a lot of courage to open up, you know, to a group of strangers, and we appreciate that.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, and that's, I mean, I'm not here to, you know, pat my own back or, you know, toot my own horn or anything like that. It's, I only speak because speaking has helped me. Talking about the problems that I have has helped me, and my goal and my ultimate goal in life now is to work for an organization that helps and talks to guys and girls that it's okay, and it's not it shouldn't be frowned upon. It shouldn't be frowned upon. And I can remember specifically after my first officer involved shooting, I just wanted to get back to work. So I didn't talk to the psychiatrist. I went to my psych visits and I sat there and stared at her. And then I went, did you go to your visits? Yep. Give me my gun. Let's go back to work. And I don't think that's the right attitude. And, you know, we need to, one of my friends, him and I were talking. He's a retired cop as well, and he says, "Let me ask you this, dude. If I were to give you a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, any expensive car, $500,000 car, and I gave it to you, and I just said, please just take care of it, and you drove it, and you drove it hard, and then boom, the check engine light comes on. Are you going to take it to, and this car is yours, are you going to take it to the mechanic to get fixed?" I said, yeah, absolutely. Think of your brain as your Ferrari engine. Start getting it checked out, start doing that routine maintenance so it sustains you, so that car sustains for a long time versus the, you're not going to drive a Ferrari with the check engine light. You're not going to get into the red. That car's going to blow up. Well, that's what's going on with our brains. And that's just my analogy. That was our analogy on how we explain it. But I think that paints a perfect picture on our brain is a machine, and we need to have routine maintenance. And that's what these voodoo doctors, these head doctors do. They have this stigma about them. Like, they're gonna tell you that you're screwed up and you can't work anymore. That's not true. Their job is to get you back into work, but they want to get you back into work with the right brain housing group. They want to put those pieces back together so you can function better. And we have to lift that stigma about counselors and peer counselors and chaplains, and they're not there to tell on you. They're there to just listen to you and let you talk and get the things off of your chest so you can go to work, or you can go home and not hate being home, or hate being around your wife, hate being around your kids. That was me. I hated coming home. I hated being around my kids, and I love my kids. I've already lost a baby. I love my kids. I have 3 beautiful children and a beautiful wife. I'm very blessed. They're all healthy. But I hated coming home to them because my brain wasn't right. And that's what I think. This is just my personal feelings. Is talking to these head doctors, because they go to school a lot longer than we do, and they learn, and they're not going to learn to get better if we don't talk to them. So.
Yeah, but Jeff, the one thing I would point out though is that a lot of those folks, while they've gone through a lot of schooling, they also need to be culturally competent. They need to understand the dynamics of the first responder community.
Agreed.
And the veteran community if they're serving veterans. I know a lot of, both being a veteran and a first responder myself. Although I know you Marines don't really consider the Air Force being in the military, so I'm just going to let you slide on that one, bro. Just throwing that out there. Throwing that out there, man. Look, you don't really consider me military. I don't get offended when you eat crayons. We're all good, bro. Okay, good. We're straight.
Better with the skins on.
Yes, absolutely. But doctors that are seeing veterans, firefighters, police officers, they have to be culturally competent, and they have to understand. Because here's the thing: if you go to a doctor that isn't culturally competent, the likelihood that you're not going to go back is pretty high, because you don't feel they get it. They don't understand, right?
Right.
So
I agree 100%. But they're not going to get better if we don't talk.
100%.
So if we start talking early, and I think it needs to start being indoctrinated before an officer involved shooting, before a critical incident, before just going in and doing routine checkups, and just talking. I think those shrinks and those psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, whatever you want to call them, they're not going to get anywhere if we don't start opening those doors. And we got to get some of the old dinosaurs out of the way.
Yeah.
That will help these younger guys have a sustaining career and a longer lasting career, and enjoy their retirement and not die post-retirement.
Yeah,
I think a lot of the stigma, gentlemen, ladies, comes from, especially in the military, is security clearance. So, years ago, it was, you didn't share that the term "suck it up" was very popular in the lexicon, because it affected your job. And like Jeff, you said, okay, I'm a Marine, like it's in my core, my blood. I was a combat aviator, and then did that. I was a steer instructor for 3 years. And then I went into diplomacy, public affairs, and worked my last 10 years with special operations in NSW. And, a lot of that time, what we started really instituting within the NSW community is checkup from the neck up. And just like you go to a primary care physician, you check in with the clinical psychologist to see how things are. And it's really much part of the culture now. More and more people are starting to do that. I remember being an advisor to General Nagata in Syria. We're doing a counterterrorism mission, training the rebel groups to counter ISIS. And it was a giant task force. And he used to come on mic and say to everyone, hey, you guys, we all have to watch out for each other, watch out for our brothers, our sisters in arms. This is not, just like terrorism, it's indiscriminate, right? It doesn't matter if you're a woman, a man, Marine, whoever, and what those underlying issues may be that cause that kind of, behavior. And the brain, quite frankly, is so hard to treat because if you have a kidney or a lung, there's antibiotics or there's things for that. The brain has so many neurons that it takes multiple medications to know what might be right and also the right support system. And it's very cathartic to talk it out. So talking, especially in cognitive behavioral therapy, is just so effective.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm starting cognitive CBT.
So I want as the I'll identify myself and Dave will agree with. I'm the resident voodoo doctor here. Okay. So by the way, Jeff, don't ever stop calling me that. Okay. Well, hopefully we're going to be good friends, and I want to be your voodoo doctor. I love the title. But Suzanne, you said something that was really, with the security clearance. And I remember, Dave, when you and I first talked, one of the first things is you said, I'm not saying anything because no one's taking away my badge and my gun.
Yep.
Right. And that was that culture. And again, I'm not military. I don't know anyone. My late father, I think, was a sharpshooter, never actually went overseas. But I've done a lot of work with first responders, and Dave and I talked about this, Tanya, you and I have talked about this, the most rewarding debriefings that I've ever done with police after a domestic or a infant vital signs, that kind of stuff, is when there's a peer support there. Because I can talk as much as I want. They're going to try and BS me as much as they can. And the peer support's going to say, okay, guys, that's great. You can crap on this guy, but I'm not buying it. Now let's really talk. And then the debriefing goes much, much better. But, I want to say another thing, Jeff. You talked about talking, and it's really good for you. One of the things that I'm just learning with all of these talks that I go on, and by the way, whether it's Dave or Tanya, someone's got to give me like a glossary of all these terms and these initials, because I'm totally lost with what half of this stuff means. But one of the great things about it is everyone that I'm running into, yeah, they want to talk. Yes, they've come to that point in their lives that they need to open up for their own good. But every single one of them is also doing it for their brothers and sisters. Like, it's the most selfless group of people I have ever met in my life. And it's just, Tanya, you and I talk about this all the time. I'm so blessed to be part of this group, to be talking to all you guys, and now hopefully getting more involved. But just, Jeff, don't stop talking, because it's fantastic. And thank you for opening up so much.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Jeff, I was actually going to ask a quick question. So I kind of have a little bit of a different perspective. I've kind of played both sides of the fence. I've been a military veteran. I started off in the Army, and then I joined the Chair Force. But I've been in for
bad decision after
years
bad
now.
decision.
I know, right? Well, life's about choices,
And high ASVAB scores.
Oh my God.
Hey, I started off Army Field Artillery. Those crayons actually taste pretty damn good. Okay, I'm just saying. No, but so I've kind of had both sides of it. And I spent in Air Force Aviation, but after that, I've actually spent during that, I spent about 10 years as a law enforcement chaplain. So I kind of played both sides of the fence. I kind of see what it feels like to be hearing the BS from somebody else saying I'm good and I'm fine, but then at the same time being that exact same guy saying I'm fine when I'm not. So I guess kind of my question was this. What do you think it would take for those that are actually willing to help you? What do you think it would have taken for you to actually have opened up during that time? Would you think it would have been competence? I know somebody said cultural competence, which is huge, but like in your mind, what do you think it would have taken for you to open up during like earlier on in your career before now? If anything.
Well, I can speak for the city of Missoula because they are working on things like this. Their chaplains are constantly around the station, just hanging out, BSing with the guys, going on ride-alongs. They ride along with the fire department, they ride along with cops, but they're not just riding along during day shift. They're riding along during night shift. Speaking chaplain specific, for me personally, I think maturity for sure. And almost more of a mandatory thing. And I don't know how guys feel about that, but we go to the range, we have to qualify every quarter. We should be seeing a head doctor every quarter, even if it's for nothing. Just part of your your annual training. But I think for a chaplain specific, they're not going to ever talk to you if they don't know you, and if you only show up on the bad incidents or when you're called. So breaking bread with them. If they're having like a shift party or a team party, go for a little bit and have a hot dog with them, have a soda, because I don't know if you guys are allowed to drink or not. I don't know your guys' rules.
I'm allowed.
Okay, so have a beer with the guys and show that you're normal, and that and just talk, and don't try and push too much. But I think just building that rapport with them, I think that's a huge step, because you're not only gaining their trust and their respect because you're out riding on a Saturday night graveyard when you don't want to be. Nobody wants to work Saturday night graveyard, but you're out there and you're becoming one of them, even though you're not taking the call, you're not taking the paper, but you're just hanging out with them. I think that goes a long way, and that's how you're going to get your knowledge on what they're going through on a day-to-day basis, on a call-to-call basis, because this is a police officer's day. Pursuit, baby getting CPR, domestic violence, drunk in public. All in a couple of hours, and that wears on you. And you're those spikes and peaks and valleys of adrenaline, it catches up to you. And if you're not witness to that, I don't think you're ever going to understand that. And cops have a hard time explaining that. So for me, I think having somebody that, and when I was on my fugitive task force team, I was with them more than I was with my wife. I slept in my car half the time because our caseload was so big. So I was always around those guys. We were grabbing coffee together. We were joking together. We were, venting about what the stupid captain had to say. And, so we had that brotherhood, and we were able to vent and talk and learn. And I remember when my infantry squad leader killed himself in 15, I was having a really shitty day at SWAT training. And my friend pulled me aside and goes, dude, you're not acting like yourself. You're avoiding everybody. You're being a dick. Your tactics are terrible. Where's your head at? And I just told him, I said, dude, I'm sorry. My squad leader just killed himself. He was my squad leader in Afghanistan. He killed himself because he failed at life, quote unquote. And he goes, okay, let's just go. And him and I just went and we talked about Corporal Griffith. And, but he witnessed something going on with me physically and pulled me aside. So that was very big of him. And him and I have remained great friends ever since. Like, that's a true definition to me of a brother. Somebody who's not just uses the word brother and then, then talk shit about you when your back is turned. No, that guy pulled me aside, pulled me out of SWAT training because, one, I sucked that day. And two, because I was not myself, and he realized it. But he realized it because we had developed such a close bond in a relationship. And for you, sir, as a chaplain, I would say you're never going to notice if those gears aren't lining up, if you don't know your guys. So if that makes sense.
No, that's perfect, man. That's kind of what they even covered in some of the training they did, was exactly what you just said. They're never going to call on you. You better know them. If they kind of always just tell us, if they need to learn how to not breathe out when you show up, because if you show up, if you only show up when somebody dies, they assume when you show up, somebody's died.
Somebody's dying.
That's about it. So yeah, that's perfect, man.
I want to add something to this. I'm the nurse in the group, not military, but I'm an ex-wife of law enforcement and veteran. And I want to add that I think it's very important, especially chaplain, for you to know, as me being a nurse, it's very important that the guy or whoever it is comfortable with you. Because I know when I went in, when I hit that moment that I knew I needed to go in, as far as having a therapist, provider, chaplain, whoever it is that's culturally competent, because when I went in, I was told by the provider, whatever you do, don't tell your colleagues because nobody's going to want to work with you. And that kind of like led me in a different direction. But because I'm the nurse, I'm very good at, you should this, you should that. But the other thing I always say is to make sure that it's a provider that you're comfortable with, because you could be with the provider just like I could walk in a room and I like you or I don't like you just based on the vibe. And if you are not with the provider that you're comfortable with, you're not going to open up. I know me, I'm very comfortable opening up to my priest at church, but I'm very careful with other things that I share just because I'm not comfortable. And that I cannot stress that enough. It has to be a provider that you're comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable with them, then you need to find one that you are.
And I would say the same thing goes for head doctors, for those voodoo doctors. They all have different training and they all have different skills. And if I'm not comfortable talking, and I've changed psychs twice now, if I'm not comfortable talking or if I'm not progressing, I will gladly walk away and go try somewhere new. And because this is like, forgive the terminology, but I have 2 young daughters. This is like Cinderella's slipper. They all don't fit. So you have to find the right one. So Brenda, I completely agree with what you're saying. You have to have that comfortability. And Ryan, for you, if a guy's really not opening up, but there's some skeletons in his closet or whatever, maybe try and introduce him to somebody else. If he's not, maybe he or she's not comfortable with you, bring a peer, somebody that they're comfortable with, and or find a different chaplain or priest or whatever, rabbi, whatever, to maybe help facilitate and see if there's some comfortability there.
That's actually one of the ones that I actually found from the Air Force that taught me this one is, I act as one of our first sergeants when they asked me to. But one of the things, I know they don't want to talk to me when I'm wearing the shirt hat. They're not gonna. What they will do though is I ask their supervisor who their best friend is, and I will reach out to their best friend and say, "Hey, dude, check on your boy," and then just leave it alone. That's honestly, man, that seems to have helped more than anything. I'm cool with not them talking to me. I don't expect them to, but if they want to talk, so long as they're talking to somebody and somebody that's going to call them on their BS when they say they're fine.
Yep.
And also for psychiatrists, it's most important for that when you're trying to figure out the right fit is their education. But for clinical psychologists and for social workers and also LPCs, licensed professional counselors, it's best on what they specialize in, whether it's trauma, combat stress, PTSD, that sort of thing. But for psychiatrists specifically, it's their background education.
Jeff, do you feel like moving to Montana, kind of things going from LA to, Missoula, that sudden slow pace of things, do you think that had anything to do with you having to face certain things? I mean, if you were still in LA and you're going at that quick pace and think just go, do you think that had anything to do with?
Oh, 100%, without a doubt. It just, there was time to actually think and time to actually slow down, and my brain would just go and some terrible places. And, I was, like I said, I was doing stupid things, and I didn't care anymore. And I don't know why. I really don't. I don't know why I went that way instead of a different way, but I'll tell you now, I'm glad I did. And I'm starting to really love Montana. The sun's right in the mountains. I wish I would have showed you guys earlier, but I got these sweet Bitterroot Mountains to my left, and oh my God, they call it Big Sky Country for a reason, and it is an amazing, amazing place. I'm learning to love where I live now, where I think even part of it was me resisting a lot of, the change that I was thrust into. I thought I could hack it because I'm a cop and I'm a Marine, and I can hack anything anywhere. And yeah, I couldn't, and it's okay. I haven't failed completely. I've fallen down, but I picked myself up on my bootstraps and got back to work. So, yeah, to answer your question though, yes, ma'am. I think definitely that transition was a lot harder than I thought it would be. And, but again, who knows what would have happened if I stayed in California and did another 15 years, where would my mental status be then, after, basically carrying another pack. And so even though I hit my rock bottom, I'm glad I hit my rock bottom at 36 versus 56 or, whatever. And so.
Well, I think our surroundings have a lot to do with our mental state. And I think Chris and I just moved to California, and we have the beach. It's a 9-minute walk.
Okay, that's not bad.
It's very cathartic. And I think if people take time to just notice their surroundings and just be outdoors. I mean, I've always wanted to go to Montana.
Come and visit. I'll show you around.
And just one more thing, I think you said that you're not going to write a book, but you have one in you. And, you're in the perfect place to eventually maybe write that. And I encourage you to do that. If for no other reason than for your kids when they're grown, to know you at this level, I think it's important for them.
I gotta say, they're stepping on her. When I wrote mine, it was probably the best thing I ever did, short of retiring. Get 20 years and 64 days of all my bullshit that I went through, and it wasn't for anybody else except for me at the time. As it turned out, now it's a thing for everybody, and it's turning out to be a wonderful thing. And believe me when I tell you, man, it was awesome. Getting that thing out on paper was like, it was so de-stressing for me over time. It wasn't just one thing. It was like 2 years worth of, now I've let that go. Now I've let that go. And it was great, man. I'm telling you, no kidding. So
I'll say as well, I'm not a book writer, but I retired a year and 4 months ago. And
congratulations.
Thanks. And I have been writing as well, just not a book. It may end up there at some point, knowing how much I've been writing, but
it probably will. It probably will. So
the catharsis of getting those thoughts out on paper, honestly, is what saved my life.
I think it's what saved Chris too.
And because in our business, whether you're in the military, which I wasn't, I did 20 years in law enforcement, you can't have an opinion on anything. And if you do, you get fired or whatever. But so to have an opinion again after 20 years and get all those opinions out on paper, even if nobody else reads it, it lives somewhere else other than inside the four walls of your noggin. And honestly, it saved my life. Now that some of it's out there floating around, and certainly on LinkedIn is kind of where it lives at the moment. But start writing if you have it in you, because it's to get that out on paper and let it live somewhere else is freaking awesome.
It may just take over like it did with Chris. Like he said, he just started writing one day and he didn't put it down for.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know. I am a Marine, so I mean, my book would probably be like a coloring book or a pop-up book.
Yeah, I'll share my crayons with you, buddy.
Right on.
All words.
Yeah. No, that's the.
Lots of pictures. Lots of pictures.
Lots of
I
pictures.
live in New Jersey. We have the Crayola factory in Easton. About
Oh, sign me up.
I'm the resident editor here, so if any of you guys have questions or anything, even if you don't ever want to publish, but if you have any questions, I'm certainly open to helping you guys out, because I believe everybody has a story, an important one to tell, and
I saw your post, saying you can get us all an autographed copy. So I'll take you up on that.
She didn't clear that with me, just so you know. But we're talking about that. So
I have an autographed copy from Chris, and Chris, all I gotta say is I'm still laughing at the ponytail and the Speedos, okay?
Yeah, buddy.
Come on,
That's all I'm
Brent,
gonna
that was our
say.
secret, man. Come on.
That's
Dude.
all I'm gonna say.
All right.
My wife found pictures of my mullet growing up, so I was meant for Montana.
Wow. This group really took a turn down the road. I don't know, but
better stop recording, man.
You got a bunch of veterans in here. This is kind of expected.
You're supposed to step in here.
mullets and Speedos. Like what?
Yeah,
Where? How did we get here?
I feel like I'm now home. Thank you.
Going sideways real quick.
Yes.
Steph, I would love to. I'm not in law enforcement or in military, but my dad was a police officer for 37 and a half years before he passed away. And so
may he rest in peace.
I just really admire your strength and the strength behind your story as a daughter of a first responder. My dad worked narcotics and vice when I was growing up, and he worked the night shift. So I never really saw him that often, usually on weekends at like my soccer game. And so there wasn't a ton of interaction, but as he went up the ranks and became a captain, he became more and more, at the desk and not spending so much time on the road. And it's a little bit similar to what you're describing in terms of like slowing down and realizing all the things are hitting you at once. So he had gone through a lot of just cumulative trauma throughout his career, but it all kind of hit him when he was at like his 25-year mark. And at that point, I was able to notice like different changes in him as a daughter. He would come home and barely say hi to me, or, walk in the door and just go right to the chair and turn on the TV. And it was like he was there, but not home. Like his body was there, but he wasn't there. And so as a kid, it was so hard, especially as a teenager. I'm cranky myself, right? A 16-year-old girl, it's like everyone's nightmare. But on top of that, now he's kind of having this, disconnection from me. And so it was just really hard as the daughter, not really understanding where that was coming from. And he was Batman to me, right? Like he drove a really cool undercover police car and he was big and tough and badass. But because of that persona, I felt like that really impacted his ability to feel at home. Like he really has struggled with, how do I kind of let myself be genuinely upset or stressed after work without still being Batman for my kids or for my wife? And so I just admire your story so much. And he actually passed away he retired in hospice care because he was so set on he was never going to retire. So he never really had that moment. And so I just really admire what you did. And from a daughter of a cop, I just, I'm so excited for your future and growing up with your kids and having those special moments that maybe were lost because my dad didn't get help when he needed to. And I'm in my PhD right now, hopefully going to be helping first responders with mental health and mental wellness. And so just thank you so much for sharing your story. And I love the conversation about cultural competence. And that was huge for my dad. It took him so long to find someone he trusted, and he didn't trust who was provided in the EAP. And so there was just all these different loopholes. And he was really close with a lot of like older police officers when he was a rookie. And so they would end up retiring or passing away. And then he was kind of left at the department, like the only one left and who he really connected to. And so that was really hard for him as well. And so he just didn't get the help that he needed in a good amount of time and unfortunately passed away. But again, from a daughter and from someone who's looking to help first responders in the future, I'm just so grateful for your story.
Oh, thank you so much, Aaron, and may your father rest in peace. So yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you're going to be helping the Thin Blue Line like that. That's awesome. So well done. And if you ever need anything, don't hesitate.
Thank you. So
you got a family here for sure.
Yeah.
It's really powerful to have all of you on, just to hear all your different perspectives and to hear and, you know, all the support. And Jeff, for you to be able to share your story and just the courage it takes to just really put it all out there. So I feel really grateful for everybody making this happen. And
thank you, Sarah.
I'm curious about something too. I just want to piggyback a little bit on Nat's question. When everything slowed down for you and the things inside started bubbling up, do you feel like that was all from military service and police service, or do you think it was from even earlier childhood? I'm just curious. I'm connecting dots here, just patterns, just curiosity.
I don't think from childhood. I think it was a majority of my military service and then my cop work. And then, yeah.
Just that high tempo. That's because
and then also not knowing what was going on with my friends down south, you know, and knowing that they've been in shootings and they've been in car pursuits, and I'm driving Miss Daisy up here and my friends are doing the Lord's work down south, and you know, they're you know, like FOMO, fear of missing out. I had major FOMO. I was really miserable up here, and I wouldn't accept anything up here because I wanted to be back down south chasing bad guys instead of, you know, dealing with another transient because, you know, he's too drunk. Like, that wasn't fun to me. I had fun chasing bad guys. So I had major FOMO on what my buddies were doing. And, you know, because they would text me, we'd be up, you know, they're working graveyard on a surveillance, and I'm working graveyard, you know, chasing my cop car buddies around, and you know, they're doing cool stuff and I'm not. So, you know, things, you know, what if I would have stayed? What if I was playing the what if games, and then, you know, I started hating my life, and I didn't want to be around my kiddos. I was exactly what Aaron described. I'd come home and I'd go to my room, or I'd go downstairs and sleep in the basement. I would, you know, go to the gym for 2 hours on my days off because I didn't want to be around my kids. I didn't want to be around my wife. And I didn't know how to be, because I was so miserable. So.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm sorry. I actually have to bounce real quick. But I wanted to thank you guys for letting me be part of this.
Ryan, good to meet you.
Really good to see you, Ryan.
Thank you for being here, Ryan.
Hey, I hope I can chat with you guys later. Just in case, and I'm sorry I have to do one quick plug. So the foundation that is on my name thing, 1033 Foundation, dude, Jeff, they teach exactly that. The idea of like teaching it early on in their career about what stress is, how to manage it, what cumulative and traumatic stress is, and all those little parts. Literally what they're doing for police, fire, EMS, military, and now hospital workers too. Honestly, Jeff, if I could have a chat with you later, I'd like you to have a conversation with our president. For the rest of you guys, you get the chance to. I'm going to put up if you don't mind, Sarah, I'm going to put up a link real quick.
No, please do.
These folks are legit. They're as culturally competent as they come. They're all former police, fire, EMS, military, hospital workers, and they know what they're talking about. And the idea is give them crisis intervention training, and then we kind of do advanced peer support for units, as well as doing stress management training before it ever happens, so that they're ready to engage when it happens. So anyways, it's just like
Ryan,
that just makes sense. Yeah.
My info's in the chat box. Feel free to shoot me a text or shoot me an email, whatever's easier.
I'll probably shoot you a text in a couple minutes, man.
All right, sounds good.
All right, hey, thanks, guys. It was really
Ryan.
I can chat with y'all later. Thanks again,
Thanks,
Sarah.
Ryan.
Take care. Good to see you.
Appreciate it. Hey, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
I'm definitely going to connect with you offline.
Okay.
I don't know how often you get back here to LA, but I definitely have. I definitely have some opportunities for some speaking engagements for you.
Oh wow. Okay.
For sure, and I'd love to share about some of the training that we're doing for first responders around veterans and how we link cultural competencies and those type of things. So definitely let's chat.
Absolutely love to help. I'm serious. I would love to help. That is my passion. And it's a new passion, but it's definitely my passion where I want to end up.
Awesome. I appreciate that.